speaker series. And this is the fifth present and last presentation of our series of speakers. Dr. Joseph Dorsey, in the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and on the faculty here. And it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Dr. Angela Persaud Reddy, MD, to speak to us tonight about plant-based diets, lifestyle movement. Angela and I have known each other for quite a while now. I consider us friends, and I thought she'd be a great speaker to enlighten us about better ways of eating to help us with our physical as well as ecological circumstances right now. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about her background. Dr. Reddy is a board-certified physician in both internal medicine and lifestyle medicine. She works as a medical executive in a healthcare space. Dr. Reddy has been involved in almost every component of healthcare delivery. She has practiced in the pre-hospital, hospital, academic, outpatient, and delivery. She has practiced with about 20 years of clinical experience. She noticed the cost of healthcare rising, coupled with the exponential growth of chronic disease. This was the impetus that motivated her to pursue an executive MBA from the University of South Florida, where she graduated in 2021 on the Dean's List. Her expertise is in population health, value-based care, and topics in health disparity. Dr. Reddy hoped to play a vital role in transforming the delivery of healthcare, where maintaining health takes priority over managing disease. Her and her husband founded the PBLM organization, nonprofit, which plant-based lifestyle movement that focuses on educating and empowering the community on pillars of lifestyle medicine. She's a public speaker who reaches out to the local community and educates them about lifestyle medicine. Dr. Reddy lives in Tampa, Florida with her husband and 3 children. She enjoys traveling, taking nature walks, cooking plant-based cuisine, public speaking, and conducting educational seminars on health and wellness. And so we have the distinct pleasure of having her here to talk to us about her plant-based food movement and see if we can understand the benefits of moving in that direction and how sustainability is well linked to that. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to my friend and colleague, Angela Reddy.
Thank you, Dr. Dorsey, and it's a pleasure to be at my alma mater, USF, and giving this talk today. Thanks to all the wonderful people that were able to make this connection with Dr. Dorsey and myself and allow me to come here to speak with you today on a topic that can no longer wait. So I'm going to bring my slide up, and I am going to put it on presentation mode so we can get going. So when you look at my title, or this title of the slide, People, Plates, and the Planet, you're probably thinking, how does it all relate? For the people that live on this planet and the choice that we put on the plates, it has a twofold effect on our personal health and that of our planet. So we're going to take a deep dive into the plates what's on our plates and how this plate affects our entire health and what happens to our planet. There's no conflict of interest here. The only conflict of interest, if you want to call it that, I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit organization in Tampa, pblm.org. And basically, we do a lot of free community work educating the public about lifestyle changes and what this would do for their health and for the planet. So this presentation is meant just for educational purposes, and it's not intended for any medical advice. And the first slide I want to start off with today is chronic diseases in America. The current state of the union is that we have 6 in 10 adults with chronic diseases in America. And 4 in 10 adults will have at least 2 or more chronic diseases. About $4 trillion are spent in annual healthcare cost. Is this sustainable? Is the question. This slide shows a bunch of preventable chronic diseases, most of which you are familiar with. More than likely, you know at least one person in your circle that may have 1, 2, or 3, or all of these chronic diseases. And these are preventable chronic diseases. These are diseases that if we take control of our lifestyle, we can manage to prevent them. And the key lifestyle risk factors, when you look at all of these risks for chronic diseases, believe it that poor nutrition is on top as the most common modifiable risk factor for chronic diseases, and it tops the board. Now, let's focus a little bit on where the problem is in our State of the Union today. It's a trend of obesity in our adult population and also our children. So the trend in obesity and severe obesity is crossing about a 50% in adult population. And if you take obesity, severe obesity, and overweight, we have crossed over 70% in the adult population. Is this sustainable? Now, I want to bring you to a visual of the 1995 CDC statistics for every state in the United States where obesity was not more than 20% in each of these states. Now, we're focusing on Florida, right? So nothing more than 20% in the United States in 1995. Let's fast forward and just take a pause, what that map is going to look like today. And here we are. We don't see a single state that is less than 20%. If anything, we are at 30% in Florida. Not a single state with less than 20% obesity. Is this sustainable for the planet? And why are we in this epidemic? If we don't stop this epidemic, what is going to happen to our country, our people, our planet? And here is a side-by-side comparison so that this can just have a little visual as I start to dig deep into this very important topic. Why do I bring up obesity? According to the National Cancer Institute, there are 13 cancers that are associated with overweight and obesity. And this is preventable cancers. This is not sustainable. For women over 40 who are obese, they run the risk of breast cancer, colon cancer, and all the cancers that you see from head to ovaries and colon and rectum. And I just want to bring you to the current statistics. In the middle of a global pandemic and COVID-19 in the year 2020, we lost about 345,000 patients to COVID-19. There was a huge campaign to prevent these deaths from COVID-19. But I want you to take your eyes to heart disease, almost double that of COVID-19. Look at cancer. Where are the campaigns for heart disease and cancer? What are we doing as a society to bring the message out? How we can prevent these diseases? Where are the public campaigns for these diseases? And what I want to show you here, on the left side, I want to show you our healthcare system, where tertiary care and secondary care is our disease management system. This is where most of our emphasis and most of our dollars are going in a tertiary and secondary care system. When it comes to public health promotion and the public messaging, we are actually spending far less than where we are for disease treatment, management, and so forth. How about we flip this pyramid? How about we put public health promotion and messaging as the #1 priority in our society? If we were to focus on the public health promotion and the campaigning in public health, we could have a society where chronic diseases starts to dwindle or start to come down. So we need sustainability in our healthcare system so we are not there receiving that tertiary care or that secondary care. And this pie graph is just basically showing us where our money is being spent. Again, the majority of our money, our taxpayer dollars, are spent on hospital care, right? Little bit is spent on our public messaging. But look at where all of that money or all of our finances are being spent. Is this sustainable? Answer is no. And why do I bring the plate? Why is the plate here? I want you to take a look at the messaging. The plate on the left is a plate that comes from Canada. I would agree, or one would agree, that it sends a pretty powerful message. Our plate in the US, this is what we have. Protein seems to be a food. I never went to the supermarket looking for a protein aisle. I don't know if any of you have, but I sure don't look for protein when I go shopping. I look for my broccoli, my carrots, my strawberries, my vegetable protein aisle. So I understand what vegetable fruits and grains are, but this I don't understand. So public messaging is the key. And the state of the US health basically showing that the #1 risk factor for death, disability, and disease is dietary induced risk factor. It is the #1, and it's the one that we can all modify, and it's the one that we can all do something about. There are many voices in many medical society today. And what that voice says, eat more unrefined plant foods. For the American Medical Association, the Diabetic Association, the American College of Endocrinology, American Heart Association, the World Cancer Foundation. The common message is eat more unrefined plant foods. If our plates look like this, with more than 3/4 of it fruits, vegetables, grains, right? We would be doing okay. And if we were drinking more water and less juices and less sugary beverages or less dairy products, we would be doing much better. And now let's take a look at the dietary intake recommendation and what's on our plates and what we're eating most of. So what this is basically showing is what we're eating more of and what we're under eating. So we're under eating the dark green vegetables, the red orange vegetables, all the vegetables we are not eating. We are under eating them. But what we're eating, it says preferred grains. We are eating a lot of refined grains, a lot of the breads, the cookies, the crackers. And we're eating a lot of the grains that are not wholesome. We would like to have more wholesome grains, and we would like to have more foods that are in its real form and not processed out. So the current recommendation is more plants. If we can eat more plants and we can flip this, we would do better with our overall health and our overall outcome in a population. And here is another chart that I wanted to bring to your attention on healthy diet score. I'm talking to a university here, and we're looking at modifiable risk factor. And the healthy diet score in adults 20 and over was undetectable on this chart. So we have a lot of work to do on our diet. And why do I bring diet up? Because I want us to connect. If we were to have more plant predominant meals, right? Not only would we work on our physical and mental health and our overall well-being, but we will also work on our planetary health. The majority of the global land that's used for food today, 29% of this land that we used, 29% of our land today is habitable land. 71% is habitable. Out of that habitable land, 50% is used for agriculture. And if we take that 50% of agriculture, what are we doing on this agricultural land? We are raising livestock, meat, and dairy. 77% of that agricultural land is used for livestock, meat, and dairy. 23% of that agricultural land is used for crops. And out of that 23% that's used for crops, 82% are for plant-based foods, and the rest is used for meat and dairy. And out of the 82% for plant-based food, 63% is used for human food, and the 37% is being used to feed the animals. And the land that is being used for food product, okay? The percentage of land that's being used, the majority of it is for lamb or mutton or goat or beef, cheese, dairy, dark chocolate, and a small amount of it is used for our fruits and vegetables. So if we were to ask the question to the audience, if the majority of land is being used for animal agriculture, and we know that a plant-based diet or a plant-forward diet is better for our health and better for our planet, why are we not moving in that direction? Now, this is again another per calories that we are consuming today. The land that is used for kilocalories, again, would be the animal product that we're using a large majority of land for calories. Now we're looking at the caloric intake for vegetables and fruits. We're using less land to grow our fruits and vegetables. We're using an enormous amount of land to grow our animal products, right? Our animals for food. So we would want to shift more towards the fruits and vegetables and utilizing less land for that. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, there's a lot of debates about protein. Where do you get your protein from? I must get more protein in my diet. I need more protein to build muscles and so forth. There's so much talk on protein, protein, protein. A large amount of land is being used for protein coming from animal sources instead of vegetable sources. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Now, this is the one that's going to be very interesting to the College of Global Sustainability, is our global greenhouse gas emissions from food production. So as you can see here, livestock and crops for animal food, this actually has the highest percentage for livestock and crops for animal food in this area. Now, if you look here, the food and the packaging of these food, the transportation of this food, the processing of this food, growing the food, these animal products, right? And the crops to feed these animals. This is highly burdensome for our planet today. And so we want to make sure that when we choose our food, we want to think about that food that we're eating, the impact of that food on our land, the impact on our food with the greenhouse gas emission, the impact of that food on our health as a human being. And greenhouse gas emission across the board, beef, lamb, and cheese seems to have the highest amount of greenhouse gas emission across the board. So as we start thinking and we become more mindful of the food that we eat, we must think about how it's produced and what it's doing to our environment. And again, the same thing with the protein. When we think about our protein consumption, we need to think about the greenhouse gas emissions from our protein consumption as well. The more animals that we are consuming, the higher greenhouse gas emissions that animal would have cost for our environment. So our choice that we make has multiple folds of impact in our world today. And now let's move over to fresh water and the amount of water from our planet that is needed in order to raise these animals and to make these special food. So cheese, believe it or not, has per kilogram has one of the largest amount of fresh water use because of the animals that are being grazed and the animals to produce this cheese. So as you can see, all of the animal products here has the highest amount of withdrawal of water, fresh water from our planet in order to graze, in order to grow, in order to produce this food to feed our population or feed our planet. Same thing for the protein. When we're looking for protein, the same thing. Cheese and nuts and milk and fish, beef, all of that is using a high amount of fresh water from our planet. So when we partake in those meals, we are making a conscious decision on multiple folds. Same thing for continued kilocalories when we're looking at calorie consumption and we're looking where do we get all of our calories from animal products. We are going to use more fresh water for these animals to be grazed or these animals to grow and produce this type of calories for us. And this is the one that I want you guys to keep in your mind as we're making a choice in terms of the type of milk that we're consuming each day and looking at the greenhouse gas emission and the freshwater use and the eutrophication process. Dairy's on top with the largest amount of land use for dairy production, the largest amount of land use for oat milk production as well. If we look at greenhouse gas emissions, dairy is on top with the largest greenhouse gas emission, and so is the usage of fresh water, and so is the eutrophication process. And why did I bring that? Why am I talking about this? Because I want you to start thinking about incorporating more greens and grains and nuts and fruits into your diet. Food is healing. Food that has life, such as these, with all these colors of the rainbow, does amazing things for our body and allows our body to repair itself on multiple folds when it comes to chronic diseases and also to prevent these diseases from ever happening. And plant-based meals can be extremely delicious and they can be filled with so much energy and so much life that you feel great just eating them. And they're not boring. It's not like a rabbit eating lettuce. You can do great things with plants and you can create exciting and beautiful meals. And these are just some of the plates of, what a plant-based diet would look like. And the key is when we're eating is the amount of calories that we're putting into our mouths and how much we're expending in terms of our energy used. And just being in balance with your calories allows you to attain a good BMI or a good weight. And that's what you want, is being able to have low calorie but high density in nutrients. That's the key. So if we can have meals that are loaded with nutrient density but are low calories, then you've won on multiple levels. And the path to our personal and planetary health literally passes through our plates. So we can pave it forward with thinking of plant-based meals and going forward, making those health choices and repairing our body and making sure our families are taken care of, our children are taken care of, our planets are taken care of, and us as a society is taken care of. I want to thank you for this opportunity to allow me to present what a plant-based diet means to us as a society, what it means for our planet, and what it means towards disease management and diseases overall. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're going to have a question and answer session, Dr. Reddy. But before we get that, I'm kind of curious, because you are a physician, and normally physician, the way you're trained and educated, it's more about medications and pharmaceutical, drugs and pharmaceuticals and so forth. What was it that sort of changed the direction that you may have been taught about medicine to be more about preventive medicine rather than reactionary medicine, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It happened about 5 years ago as I was writing the last prescription for a patient of mine who was on 20 different prescription drugs. And he was morbidly obese. And he just looked at me with tears in his eyes, asking me if I thought that he'd ever be able to get off prescription drugs. And clearly at that time, I said to him no, because I, as a physician, did not even know that diseases could be reversed through lifestyle intervention. So in medical school, this is not something that's being taught to physicians. Nutrition sciences, we barely get a few hours in nutrition sciences. So it was in my best interest and my patient's best interest to hit the books, get back into it. And I joined the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And that was a completely new world for me, realizing that diseases could be reversed through the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So it's an invigorating part of my life now that I get to speak with individuals and being able to influence them in more ways than one in changing their lifestyle.
Well, I agree. Since I've known you, I've changed my eating patterns, and I feel a tremendous amount of energy more, and feel like I'm off the medications I was on mostly, and feeling great, going to the gym, working out, and I can see the benefits of just letting your body do what it needs to do to heal itself and to keep itself healthy, right? So I'm going to open it up for questions from my colleagues and the audience. Anyone else have a question for Dr. Reddy? Pradeep?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Reddy, for the really interesting and intriguing talk. This subject seems to be getting to be really catching on. I was recently part of a seminar that was done at a worldwide level. I don't know if you heard of Lalit Kapoor, who's from San Francisco, and he also promotes plant-based whole food diets. And I mean, there's been a lot of push, including things like super juice. There's a super juice concept. You take green vegetables and you convert it into, and it can be really amazing. And there's a lot of also examples of a lot of the chronic diseases that you talked about that have actually been reversed. The thing that I'm question I have is yes, there is this claim that's being made related to reversing chronic diseases across the board, but why hasn't there been enough scientific experimentation to prove this? I mean, there are examples. I mean, there's Dr. Campbell at Cornell and a whole bunch of other places that have actually proven this works, but why hasn't it caught on in the scientific community?
Yeah, so it's not even it's not even trying to prove, right? What we know right now is that we have an epidemic of obesity, right? If we lose weight, it's the common thing, visceral fat, abdominal fat, right? We start losing the weight, naturally the blood sugar starts to drop, blood pressure starts to drop. Patients are seeing this over and over again. Weight loss is a key thing for managing these diseases. So calories in, calories out. If we are having more calories in than what we are putting out, right, we're going to be in a positive balance and we are going to gain weight. So the key is getting to your ideal body weight. So low calories, high density with your nutrition. That's the key. There's nothing to even prove. It's something so simple.
But why is it not catching on? Is the question? Why is it not so much more widespread? I mean, we get to hear from you, which is great, and people like Lalit Kapoor and stuff. But it's not being promoted or being told to a whole bunch of people. You said the doctors are not trained on nutrition. I mean, that makes sense, but
yeah.
I think people should know more. I mean, obviously, you have the food industry that is promoting exactly the opposite, and that's
Right.
what people are fighting against, right? I mean, so there needs to be some sort of a messaging. I mean, probably the government or somebody needs to really push that concept.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you saw that slide that I showed where most of our money is spent in tertiary care, right? It's a business, right? It's healthcare business, right? So if you're going to be doing the messaging campaign, and which we are doing actually, we are taking it on our own, my husband and I, and we are bringing the message to our community. We have nothing in the game except to make sure this message is out there, but it's not our responsibility to do that. But we are doing that because we did not want to sit on the sideline and see this thing happening. And we as physicians just closed our eyes and said, okay, let somebody else figure it out. So there is American College of Lifestyle Medicine, the ACLM. This is an organization with thousands of physicians who are boarded in lifestyle medicine, and they're across the United States. And they are putting this message within their practice, within their patients across the country. So it is, if you look it up, aclm.org, you will see that this movement is powerful. It's moving forward. And we are learning from the syllabus of that College of Lifestyle Medicine what was not taught to us in medical school.
And I just wanted to add, though, that your husband, Kashuk, is also a cardiologist. So he has another perspective on it that's more focused on the heart, right?
Yeah, absolutely, he does. But we know that we've seen people reverse their diabetes. That one is not magic, right? Losing weight, eating right, you can reverse your diabetes. Same thing with blood pressure. You can reverse the blood pressure. You're having knee pain from osteoarthritis because of obesity. Yes, you're going to decrease your weight, your knee pain is going to get better. You have chronic inflammatory conditions, right? So you stop eating inflammatory foods and more powerful food with life, vegetables and fruits and so forth, your inflammation starts to go down. So people who are part of this movement and they are part of the healthy lifestyle, and people who have had severe chronic diseases that have gone the healthy route, they have actually reported how they have felt. And there are studies that predict that you're referring to. There are studies done with diabetes and heart disease and so forth that have been reversed with this type of lifestyle.
Is it the pharmaceutical companies and that have given people the impression that only drugs can heal you, that your body doesn't have the ability to heal itself? Is that part of it?
It's not the information that they're directly putting out, but here's what I'll say, right? If a patient who is used to eating a cheeseburger and steak, they have a high cholesterol, but they love eating their steak and their cheeseburgers. And they figured, okay, if I can have a 20 milligram of Lipitor to bring down my cholesterol, but I can eat this way, some of them will choose to continue going on the pharmaceutical. And it's a behavioral modification where patients have to make that decision, what they want to do. They want to continue the lifestyle and the behavior, and they prefer to take the medicine. Now, some will be very compelled and say, I am tired of feeling sick. I am tired of going to the doctor's office. I want an alternative. I want to be off these medicine. Is there an alternative? And they will go out there looking for those answers. And those are the people that we come in contact with.
Okay.
I hope that kind of answers your question, Pradeep.
Oh, keep up the good work and continue to make sure you continue to pass the message on. This is important information for sure.
I see Jamie has her hand up. Jamie, you want to say something?
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Reddy. I actually work for the Patel College as an administrator. But what I have a question about is I took a nutrition course in undergraduate studies that discussed the seven essential proteins. And as someone allergic to soybean, I say allergic. I have intestinal issues when I eat soybean, and as you discussed, protein is one of the major things that people are worried about today, and it was something that I was worried about as a vegetarian at the time, and so I started integrating poultry into my diet and fish. Can you speak a little bit about the essential amino acids?
Sure. So the question I get very often, Jamie, people ask me, where do you get your protein from, right? So the first thing I say, well, think about it. Where does this huge cow get its protein from, right? It's getting it from the grass, the greens that it eats, right? So a lot of the essential amino acids, they are in greens, they are in plants, right? And our body takes these amino acids and it's able to make our proteins. So it is found in our greens, in our vegetable, and how, if you're having adverse reactions to soy, lentils and beans and so forth, they're loaded with that type of protein. So we are able to make our own proteins based on the amino acids from the different, and that's the key. With a plant-based diet, you've got to have the color of the rainbow. You've got to have multiple colors on your plate and multiple different vegetables and fruits and grains in order to have the whole complete amino acids to make your proteins.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your response.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the colors, like you, Dr. Reddy, said that colors can be associated with certain vitamins and minerals, and greens, yellows, citric acid, or vitamin A and greens, and vitamin C and orange thing. So that's why I think you're saying having the rainbow in front of you, because that's where you get all of the nutrients from those various different types of fruits and vegetables and grains and so forth.
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct.
There's a hand up by Venkat, I see.
Good afternoon, Ms. Reddy. I'm Praneeth Reddy. I'm actually pursuing Masters in Industrial Engineering at University of South Florida. So I have a few questions for you. So first thing is related to diet. I am actually very much interested in fitness, and I actually learn a lot about the nutrition. And most of them suggest that the protein from the chicken and the protein from plants are quite different, because it seems that the protein from the chicken or the poultry, other kinds of poultry, will be absorbed better by the human body than that of the protein which is present in the plants or the grains. So what is your comments about it? And the second question which I want to speak is about the very idea of following a plant-based diet. If we, let's say, if we extrapolate this number of people who want to adapt this kind of diet, how would we be able to, supply the people, make the demand meet? Because if you look at the uh, top contributors of greenhouse gases, agriculture stands in top 10 because it contributes 10% of greenhouse gases, and it also affects the carbon sequestration of the planet. So let's say if the amount of agricultural land is increased tomorrow, these numbers will also go up, right? So how will we be able to deal with this?
Okay, so let's go to your first question, right? So there are many vegan bodybuilders, right? Vegan, no animal products in their body, and they're able to build muscles without a problem. So the absorption of animal protein versus plant protein, there's not any major studies that I'm aware of that there's a deficit in that absorption. Because if you Google any of the vegan body weight or champions, weightlifting champions, you will find them and they're there. So it's not an issue about the absorption. Now, if they have intestinal or motility issues where they're not able to have absorption in their villi or intestinal brush borders, that's a different scenario, right? They may have intestinal inflammation, or they may have other medical issues that precludes them from absorbing high fiber diets. Does that answer your first question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the second question to your gas, you're talking about the carbon gas emissions from agricultural farming. Is that what you're talking?
That's right.
So for animal agriculture, you are going to have a higher amount of gas emissions or greenhouse gas emissions from that. So your question, what is your specific question on that?
Well, actually, the agricultural land is also a major contributor to greenhouse gas. Let's say if we enhance the agricultural land to meet the demand of people who are following the plant-based diet, it will also increase the number of the percentage of greenhouse gases that are being emitted by the agricultural lands, right? So how do we deal with that issue? And again, and one more thing is the agricultural land also affects the carbon sequestration, the ability of the earth to, hold the carbon inside the surface. So if we keep tilling the land on a constant basis, the carbon present in the earth's surface also goes out and it contributes to the greenhouse gases again, like global warming. So these are the kinds of issues which we will be facing if we go with this kind of solution. So how do you balance this thing?
Got it. So I had shown one of the slides earlier, and if you're looking at animal agriculture, livestock, and the supply chain, they actually account for about 75% of the greenhouse gas emission. So the animal farming and the fish farms and livestock farming and the food grown on the land to feed the animals, that actually takes about a large portion of the land and creates a large amount of greenhouse gases. So when it compares to the actual greenhouse gas emission for food on the planet in terms of plant-based food, that's a smaller proportion compared to livestock and agriculture farming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. I appreciate it.
But there is some sequestration of carbon from agriculture as well, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
the plants are trapping that carbon. Absolutely. So that's why in the Amazon, you're wanting to plant more trees, right, for that sequestration of carbon.
Right. Any other questions or comments from the audience?
Hey, this is Subrata.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Reddy. Good afternoon. Very, very intriguing presentation and really loved it. I tried vegetable-based diet for some time. I did see the benefit, but it was too hard to go on a meeting and just eat lettuce, so I kind of changed. So, but my point is, you showed a graphic that showed the western half of the country is in better health, especially the 1995 graphic that you showed in the map. The entire western half was better. Is there a reason? Do they eat better? Do they know what we don't know, or they're more educated?
You know what? When you're looking towards California, right, you're closer to the land, the fresh produce. You know, they are getting more of the fresh foods, vegetables, grains, right? So you're probably seeing that more. When you're looking at the southern part, you have fast food, right? So you've got food swamps, what we call them, a lot of fast food. Every corner has a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Wendy's. So people are just having access to a lot of fast food. And as you move a little bit on the west side, you probably have less access to those fast food restaurants and more access to fresh fruits, vegetables, and so forth. And, you know, it's demographics again, you know, education, social determinants of health, all of these things play into that, right? Because people that are living in lower socioeconomic stratosphere, they're not going to have the resources or funds to go out there and purchase a healthy meal versus a 99 cents Big Mac or chicken sandwich at McDonald's. So you have to look at those disparities that exist today in society and take it all into account.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jamie, you back? Another question?
I am. This question is a little self-serving, but maybe it'll help the viewers. But I noticed one of your slides talks about colon cancer. So I'm at high risk of colon cancer because my father had colon cancer. And I recently met with my gastroenterologist, and we discussed smoking, alcohol, etc., but he never mentioned diet. And I was just hoping that you could expand on that.
Yeah, so it is.
And that's where the food goes, into your body, into your. That's weird. Yes. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries. So, you know, red meat, it's known to be linked to cancer. There's no ifs, there's no buts. It's in the medical literature, right? So I'm sure your gastroenterologist have already talked to you and said, avoid the red meats, avoid the processed meats, right? Avoid cigarette smoking, right? So I'm sure I hope he would have already talked to you about that.
I don't think he mentioned red meat. Maybe because I had the form to fill out. I don't recall, but I don't eat red meat at all. And maybe that's why he didn't talk about it.
Good. And also processed meat. If you're eating any deli meats, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Deli meats, sausages, the bacon, right? Those are all processed meat. They're group 1 carcinogen, and you should not have those on your plate.
Okay,
right?
so this is including like turkey sausage, chicken sausage,
All
turkey deli meat, all processed meats. Okay.
Correct. So there you go. And you can actually go now and start Googling it, plant-based diet and colon cancer, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
you start in a good resource that you may be able to use, and everyone else on this call, is a site called Nutritionfacts.org. It is a free site, and it has everything to do with eating healthy, pertaining to a specific disease and pertaining to preventable diseases. So you will be able to find a ton of resources and a ton of references for whatever ailments you're looking for in terms of the dietary and lifestyle modification and risk reduction.
Thank you so much. I've actually added nutritionfacts.org into the chat so everyone can have access to that. Thank you so much.
You're absolutely welcome.
So we've been talking about plant-based diets, but I think there's probably degrees of that. Whether it's vegan or what some call them vegetarian or lacto-ovo or omnitarian, and I've been eating a little more of the meat substitutes opposed to maybe just a sort of a beans and rice type of diet. And I think we talked before a little bit about that being processed. It's more about the processing as well. That even if you have a plant-based diet, it needs to be more towards the whole foods rather than the process, as like you said.
Absolutely. So, what has happened is that our life has gotten so busy that we're looking for a quick meal, right? And things that are packaged, we know are heavily processed, right? And when I say heavily processed, I mean they're loaded with sodium, right? Salt, preservative, and those alternative meats, I will never say they're healthy because they're not, right? They have saturated fats. They don't have cholesterol, but they're loaded with saturated fats because they're made out of coconut oil, they're made out of palm oil, they're made of canola oil, multiple different oils. So if someone is transitioning in from a completely a meat-based meal or meat-based lifestyle, and they're looking to transition to a plant-based diet, and they want to use alternative meats in the intermediary stage, that's perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine as you're making that transition. But towards the long-term sustainability, it is a difficult one to want to keep on your plate. So I'll give you a few type of alternatives where you can say to yourself, you know what? I've got an air fryer, I've got some tofu, or I've got some seitan, and I can just season it, throw it in my air fryer, and have a little bit of grill kind of tofu. I can make that with grains like orzos, or I can do kind of all the different grains that are available out there. And we use so many different grains with all kinds of herbs and grilled tofu. Grilled vegetable, mushrooms are loaded with protein, broccoli is loaded with protein, lentil soups, the garbanzos and potatoes, you can do all kinds of stuff with this. So once you, and what we kind of do on a Sunday, we have a bunch of garbanzo beans, whether we season it in a Thai curry style, an Indian curry style, Italian curry style. So you want to have your base. So your base can be chickpeas, soybeans, or tofu, black-eyed peas, lentils, and then you have broccoli and mushroom sautés. You have a big thing of leaves that are already cut up and put into your refrigerator. So all you do is to take portions of that and put it in your bowl. And one thing that I do is I make my own dressing. So I take like plain yogurt and I add a little bit of hummus to that, a little bit of lime juice, a little bit of soy milk, and I blenderized it. And I throw in some dill or some herbs there, and that becomes my dressing. And I just put that over our meals. And, people
You're making me hungry, Angela.
I'm telling you, this is a skill. And
Yeah.
we all need to learn this skill because our livelihood and our health depends on this, right? So it's very important that we learn those skills. And there's so many sites on the internet with how to create plant-based meals. And once you create a few of them, you're ready to go.
Okay, so preparation is important.
That's
and,
it.
And planning, yeah.
Planning.
All right, thank you for that, because I'm trying to transition now away from the meat substitutes. I'm kind of starting to live off of them, and I'm not feeling. I kind of feel like there's something too much, like you said, too much sodium, too much, coconut fat, whatever it is in it. Jamie's back again. Jamie, you get one more question.
Yes, I know. There's only a few minutes left, so
see, she wants to get access to a doctor. See, that's great. On the MD, we got to get it out there while you're here.
Exactly. And you just mentioned coconut fat, and that was the question that I had for Dr. Reddy, is that a lot of the communities that you talked about, the Thai food or the Indian food, has a lot of coconut milk. And then there's the high-fat coconut milk, and then there's the low-fat coconut milk. And fat content used to be a huge thing, but now we found it's really sugar. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's a three evil. So it's sugar, salt, and saturated fats. So these three are the three that you want to be extremely careful with. And so when I spice them up, I don't use that large amount of coconut milk per se. I will mix it with some soy milk, or I can mix it with almond milk. And so the spices that you use, especially with Thai, is going to be your basil. So a lot of basil and lemongrass, these are the two things, and a little bit of curry powder or turmeric, and that will give you that Thai seasoning that you don't necessarily need that large amount of coconut or coconut milk.
So you do recommend against coconut milk using a limited amount.
Correct, because again, it's a saturated fat.
Saturated fat.
And we're looking for calorie deficit because we want to get to our ideal body weight where we're not seeing a big belly, if you want to say, or visceral fat. Because when we have that visceral fat, we have an issue with our insulin and we become insulin resistant. And what happens, we are not able to control our blood sugars and we have issues with our blood pressure as our weight goes up. So it has so many different folds that we need to stay lean and we need to be ideal and we want to satiate. We want to eat food that are going to fill us up, not a bunch of lettuce that's not going to fill you up. You want food that are caloric, right? It has calorie, but nutriently dense, right? That will be like lentils are the easiest things to make. It takes about 15 minutes. If you get your 2 packs, or I get 2 big packs of lentils, put it in water, boil it. It even has like a little packet of seasoning that come with the lentils. And I boil that with onions and tomatoes and garlic and black pepper, paprika. And at the end, I throw in parsleys and basil and carrots and broccoli. When you eat that, you are not hungry.
Yeah, and so if I can clarify, you said saturated fats have an effect on your insulin levels?
So as we become obese or we develop fat within our viscera, within our liver, within our pancreas, within our belly, what happens is it takes a larger amount of insulin to open our cells and feed them the glucose that you just ate. What happens now, this blood sugar spikes and it goes higher and higher because it's requiring more insulin. And insulin is having a hard time because it's being blocked by the fat.
Interesting. Thank you so much for that.
All right. I'm going to have one more question.
I just want to clarification on one other thing.
I'll pass your quota.
And then Shirley can go. I just wanted to say that as someone that can't eat soy and almond milk, I've had a concern about almond milk because the amount of water that is required, and most of our almonds are produced in California where there's a drought. And so is there an alternative to those 2 milks that you recommend?
Yeah, there's oat milk and there's pea milk, pea protein.
And those are healthy alternatives.
They're healthier. If you were going to look at saturated fat, they don't have the saturated fat.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry for.
Got time for one more question,
pushing Dr. Dorsey.
Or less saturated fat, no cholesterol.
Okay. Yeah, there's no cholesterol in plants. Yeah. Go ahead, Shirley.
Hello, Dr. Reddy. Thank you so much for the information you've shared with us. This is so enlightening. Quick question. I'll make it very quick. What is your opinion on multivitamins?
So as we get older, okay, if you are a plant-based eater, so if you're asking me from a plant-based perspective or a person who's not plant-based?
A person who is not.
Who is not
converted yet fully.
Okay.
But she's on her way. I'm working with her.
I'm on my way, but not fully.
So I'm going to be a little biased, right? Because I'm plant-based and I eat the rainbow. So because I eat the rainbow, I don't need the multivitamins, but I do need B12. And a lot of people who are non-plant-based eaters, they're also B12 deficient. right? So B12 can be deficient in people who are taking antacids or PPIs, they call it, omeprazole, Prilosec, and so forth, who are on metformin for diabetes. They can be B12 deficient. Vitamin D is another one that a lot of us are deficient in, not me being a plant-based eater, but people who are wearing clothes because we are not running around naked in the sun absorbing vitamin D, right? So we are vitamin D deficient. So as we get older, we may need some calcium and vitamin D, right? B12 if you're a plant-based eater, but if you're eating a well-balanced meal, you should not be needing a multivitamin.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. It's been a very enlightening, informative presentation, and it's been great. So I'd like to thank you and give you a round of applause. And you end our speaker series, so we'll have again starting in the fall. But it was great to have you as our final speaker to leave us with a great message about health, nutrition, and sustainability.
Sure.
And thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate all the great questions. Thank you.
Okay, we'll catch up
Thank
later.
you,
Take
Dr.
care.
Reddy.
You bet. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.